Hey friends, this is Whiskey and Whit. I'm Whitney, and in today's video, we are talking about Cricut materials. What are the differences? What are some tips and tricks? What are some of my favorite projects? And ultimately, some inspiration for you to get crafting. Huge thank you to Cricut for partnering with me on this video so I can share some of my favorite tips and tricks and some insight that I've gained over the years on different Cricut materials, best places to use them, best projects to use them on, and also hopefully I can expose you to some new items that you can use for future projects. Also, for every material we're going to cover today, I've got some beginner-friendly projects for you, some free cut files, so we are going to DIY as we learn, so let's get started. Whether you are talking adhesive vinyl or infusible ink or IronOn, or when you hear me say HTV and you say, what the heck is that? I'm going to cover all of that today so you are all set and ready to go. I will also have links down in the description for all of my favorite products on Cricut's website, so you can check those out and get crafting as well. Now, depending on the type of machine that you have, anywhere from the Joy all the way up to the Maker, you can cut up to 300 some items if you have the Maker, and the Explorer family of machines as well as the Joy can cut a ton of materials as well. So I'm going to keep this pretty high level, and we're going to cover some of the super common things that your average crafter wants to use with their Cricut. That includes paper / cardstock, adhesive vinyl, IronOn vinyl, and Cricut's Infusible Ink. So first, let's talk adhesive vinyl. What I found is this is pretty much the most common reason that a lot of people start to look at Cricuts. You want to be able to cut out decals to make fun signs. You want to be able to customize stuff for your wedding. You want to be able to put names on cups and, you know, give those as gifts. This is very, very common. However, there are a few different variations of adhesive vinyl that I want to run you through, so then that way when you're purchasing stuff, you know you get the right stuff for the right project at the right time.
Adhesive vinyl is great for surfaces outside of fabric, so think cups, signs, decals, I have it on my mailbox, and more. Cricut calls their adhesive vinyl premium vinyl, and it comes in permanent, removable, glitter, holographic, and stencil. And just like the names say, permanent is your heavy-duty adhesive and removable is sticky but not too sticky. So think of this as a temporary option. I like it for stenciling and for different wall decals like this one above Sebastian's kennel, or this one I made for the mirror above our nativity scene at Christmas. Also, if you're going to be sealing over the top of the project, you can also use removable where you would use permanent. On top of glitter and holographic adhesive vinyl, you can also purchase a glossy, which is a more shiny finish, or matte, which is flat, depending on the look that you're going for. Adhesive vinyl is cut with the vinyl on top when you put it into your machine, and it's got two layers, so your vinyl on the top and then the backing, which is revealed as you weed out the parts of the design that you don't want. Adhesive vinyl doesn't need anything to stick other than some transfer tape. So that basically is what you use to pick up your design in one piece, even if it's 1,000 little cuts, and it will help you place it right where you want it to go. Think of your adhesive vinyl projects as putting a sticker or a decal on something. So there's a ton of different colors and patterns you can choose from, including vinyl with a chalkboard, dry erase, and glow-in-the-dark finish. You can also get vinyl that you can just print right on from your printer and then cut out. I've never done that, but I should give it a try because it looks really fun. Vinyl specifically for stenciling is also sold, but if you've watched my videos before, I typically use scraps because I think it sticks better, but you do you. You may also have heard adhesive vinyl being called different names if you buy it from other vendors, so I wanted to break those down real quick for you. If you've heard Series 651, that's the same as permanent vinyl. Series 631 is removable, and if you've heard Oramask with any number after it, that is a stencil vinyl. Now here are a couple super easy adhesive vinyl projects that are beginner friendly. So first, let's customize some tumblers. So I grabbed two fun colors of these Zach tumblers at Target. So the first step is to get your designs into Design Space, and you could do that via upload. Then once it was on my canvas, I got it to the right size that I needed for each cup. And then when I was ready, I clicked Make It. Now for adhesive vinyl, you don't have to worry about changing really any of the settings. The only thing that you're going to want to make sure is that your dial, if you have a dial, is set to vinyl, or you select in Design Space that you are cutting regular vinyl. Then, like I said, you will just stick your vinyl backing down, so shiny side up for this one, load it in, hit your button, and have it start cutting. Once everything came out, you're going to want to flip your mat over. This is for everything that we're talking about today. Flip it over and peel your mat away instead of the other way. You will ruin a few too many projects that way. And then I went through and weeded out any little pieces of vinyl that I didn't want. I've started to start in the top right-hand corner and weed, and it's really helped with intricate cuts like this one. Once it was weeded, I took some transfer tape and cut it down to size, put it on top of my design, used my little Cricut tool to make sure it was stuck down, and then I got my cup ready to go. I made sure that my surface was clean and dry. I lined it up, started in the middle, and pushed to the outside. I also did the same thing with my Never Underestimate a Crafty Woman cup, and this one I designed, so this will be a free cut file over on my blog, so head over to the link in the description if you'd like to make this for yourself. With any Cricut that you have, it's super easy to customize cups like this, and for this I am using permanent vinyl so that I can wash the cups and it will stay on there. Another piece of advice is let these sit for a couple days before you do anything to them, and that will also help the adhesive adhere to your cup. Another great project to use adhesive vinyl for is to customize these chalkboard signs that you can get really anywhere, Michael's, Target, Dollar Spot, the dollar store. And I created this cut file with a mixture of a free file as well as a Spotify code that I was able to get. I will leave the information down below on how to get that if you're interested. And this song happens to be the wedding song for Alex and I, so I decided to put it on a sign for our bedroom because we are updating that room. I weeded, used my transfer tape, stuck it down on my sign, and then I just used some double stick tape on a wedding photo of ours that looks like an album cover now, stuck it down, and you can go up and scan the image with Spotify's search and it will play the song, which I thought was really cool.
Up next, let's talk about IronOn. Now, the tricky thing with this is IronOn, there are a ton of different names. The adhesive vinyl has a lot of different names as well, but I feel like IronOn, you can hear a ton of different names for it, so I want to break that down for you. The first is IronOn, so that means iron or a heat source will transfer this on to whatever material you're trying to transfer it to. You can also hear it referred to as heat transfer vinyl, same thing, or HTV, which is the exact same thing, it's just the acronym. So HTV, heat transfer vinyl. Most of the time people are gonna be looking for this if you saw a really fun shirt you wanna make or you wanna put a decal on a bag. There are a lot of like fabric clothing appliques, but there are also other ways that you can use heat transfer vinyl, not just for clothing or apparel.
Cricut calls their IronOn Everyday IronOn, and like the adhesive vinyl, there are different types for various applications and uses. The thing that's true for all is that they aren't sticky to the touch like the adhesive vinyl is. You have to use a heat source to get them to stick to your surface. I've used both my Cricut Easy Press 2, which is the 9x9 size, and an iron for HTV application. I like that the Easy Press gives me an even heat press, but an iron also works too. I've used that for years. Another cool thing is IronOn vinyl can be applied to decor like fabric banners, wood signs, and more. Just be sure to read the specific packaging to know which types will work with your project, and if it can withstand the heat that you need and not melt on you, then go for it. Your work in design space for IronOn is the same as it is for adhesive vinyl, except for this. You will mirror the image. So basically you're cutting it backwards and you cut on the back of the material. Don't worry, it will all get turned around in the end. This throws some people off when they first use it. You put the shiny side down on the mat and set your dial to IronOn. It won't cut as deep because you don't want to cut through your carrier sheet. After you weed and apply it to your surface to press it, the shiny carrier sheet will now protect your vinyl when you add the heat. Other than that, HTV is super easy to use. And it can help you make things like these personalized koozies and cosmetic bags I made for a friend's bachelorette party. This fall Dollar Tree mug that I applied with a heat gun. This home banner. And this Hocus Pocus Sanderson Sisters sweatshirt. Here are a couple more beginner-friendly IronOn projects. I've been very into personalized towels lately, so I grabbed some of these flour sack towels from Target. The pack was like $4, and I started by taking my press and just making everything flattened out because flour sack towels are notorious for being very, very wrinkly. So I just went through, pressed everything out, and I just cut out using the steps I outlined that said, "Wash your hands, you filthy animal," with a nod to Home Alone, and we love that movie in our house, and I've seen this around, so I wanted to make my own. So after I cut it out and it was weeded, I put it right on to the towel. I used my heat press at about 230 degrees. This is just everyday iron-on, and I waited until it was cool to peel it off. The everyday iron-on peels better when it is cool, and that is it. It is a super quick project. This also helps make really great gifts, and we've got a fun conversation starter in our bathroom for when guests come over. Another one of my favorite ones to do for decor are these reverse canvases, and they are so easy to do. So you're going to start by taking a canvas, this one came from Michael's, and pop out the staples on the back. I just use a flathead screwdriver as well as some pliers to pull them out, and the goal is to detach the canvas fabric from the wood frame. After trimming the edges, I brought my cut file. This is another free one that I will have linked down below, and I pressed it the same way I pressed it onto that towel, just so that I had this really pretty saying. I wanted to give some color to my frame, so I stained it just with some gray stain from Minwax, and then I stretched the canvas and used a staple gun to reattach it. Your last step is to trim your excess pieces, and you're good to go. You easily could have bought this piece, but you made it easily with your iron-on vinyl.
Next, let's talk papers, and you can use a ton of different paper in your Cricut, anything from regular printer paper to construction paper to different weights of cardstock to make things like large cutouts, tags, cards, paper flowers, which are one of my favorite ways to use cardstock. There are a ton of different ways that you can use it.
Paper is not my strong suit, but I have been able to create some really cool things with their projects as a guide or just completely make their project as is. So I've used paper and cardstock to create Finn's Bluey themed cutouts for his birthday. These were a huge hit. Also, this personalized photo banner we hung up at the party showing each of his pictures from all of his 12 months. And I also used the cut and write feature to create these elastic hair tie cards for my friend's bachelorette. My two favorite things to create are cards and paper flowers, so let me show you how easy it is to put those together. Now, when I make cards, I lean fully on Cricut Design Space. They've got a variety of free items on there, and also if you're a Cricut Access member, you can find more items that are included. That's just a monthly fee, but it's not required for you to use Cricut. There are some free items on there. So I went in, I found this baby card because I was in need of one, and so what it did was it gave me the different pieces that needed to be cut. It already sectioned it off on which color mats, and it told me which ones to load. So all I had to do was set my dial to cardstock and get cutting. For this particular project, I'm using my blue mat instead of my green mat, and that is the light grip mat. So the two that I use most often are the green, as you can see in the prior videos, for pretty much everything. But when I do work with paper and cardstock, I use my blue mat. It sticks just enough so that I can cut everything out, but it does not hold on too tight to the paper that things rip. The other thing I'm doing with my Cricut here is scoring the paper, which is also awesome. So when I go to fold the card and the envelope, I know exactly where to fold it, and it makes it easier to fold. Once the envelope is done, I fold along the lines. I add just a little bit of glue. You could use whatever glue you prefer, but I just use a glue stick so it makes it easier. Add a little bit of extra weight, and you are all done. I also did the same thing for a wedding card because my best friend that you saw all the bachelorette projects for is getting married this month, and I am so excited. So I made her a card for the big day. Now let me show you how I made this really fun paper flower sign. Now I've seen these mason jar paper flower signs all over Pinterest, and when I initially saw them, I was very intimidated and it took me years to try paper flowers. Well, last summer I finally tried and now I just love them. My favorite ones to do, and by far the easiest, are these spiral flowers. So what you do is you can select within Design Space these flowers and also tell it what size paper you're cutting on. I happen to be cutting on 8.5 by 11 that I got from Michael's. Then you just follow the prompts. I inserted a variety of different colors of paper in there and it cut me a ton of spirals. I added a really cute mason jar decal to a sign that I got from the Target dollar spot, and then I started rolling flowers. So all you do is you start at the end without the circle, so the outside edge, and you just wrap it around itself. That's simple. Then I let it go just a little bit, let it kind of unroll just a little bit. Add some hot glue at the bottom and then take that circle and fold it over. Honestly, if you would have told me when I first got my Cricut that paper flowers were this easy, I probably would have planned like a ton of projects for my wedding. Nonetheless, we are making up for lost time. My final step is just to bend out some of the outside petals so it looks a little bit more realistic, and I just do that with my fingers. And then I hot glued them around the stems so it looked like they were coming out of the jar. This is so cute on our front door, and like I said, you would not have guessed by looking at it that it was that easy to make, but especially with those spiral flowers, so easy.
Now, of all the materials that I've used here on my channel, the one that I've gotten the most questions about is the Infusible Ink. Now, this is exclusive to Cricut, so the other items you could buy from other vendors. Cricut isn't the only place that sells vinyl. However, Cricut is the only retailer that makes this Infusible Ink. Now, granted, you could buy Cricut products at other stores, Cricut branded products, but Cricut, the overall brand, is the only one that makes this Infusible Ink.
Cricut's Infusible Ink does exactly what the name says. It infuses ink directly into your item. So basically it's dyeing the material versus with heat transfer vinyl, you put the vinyl on the top of your item. The Infusible Ink comes on what is called an Infusible Ink transfer sheet, and it's basically a 12 by 12 sheet of ink. It looks a little bit like vinyl, but they're super different. They feel like cardstock to me, and the color on the sheet is also very dull, but they'll brighten up when you apply heat. When I think of Infusible Ink, I think of it pretty similar to the IronOn process with a few tweaks. So yes, you'll mirror the design exactly like you did with heat transfer vinyl. Yes, you put the shiny side down. In this case, you'll also see Cricut's Infusible Ink. The weeding process is slightly different than heat transfer vinyl as well because it's more of a cardstock consistency. I tend to kind of roll it and pop out each of the pieces. You can also use your weeding tool, but it's a lot easier to just kind of fold and pop like you would with a perforation. When you go to press it, your heat source has to get up to at least 385 degrees. I use 395 on my press, but 385 will work. So if your iron can get up to that level, you can use it, but if not, you'll need another source to press it, so that's why I use my Easy Press. You'll also need to grab a piece of white cardstock to put it under your surface as a buffer and a sheet of butcher paper between the heat source and your transfer sheet, but that butcher paper will come within the package with your Infusible Ink transfer sheets. And the final bit, which is huge, you do not want to move your press once you put it down. That will help you avoid smearing the ink. So straight down, straight up. I also like to use heat resistant tape to make sure nothing shifts around on me when the press is on it. Don't use regular tape, it will screw up your whole project. The reason I love using Infusible Ink versus a heat transfer vinyl on fabric is that it's crack proof and peel proof, so it's on there super permanent. IronOn can sometimes fade, peel, crack if it's stretched too much, and you won't see that with the Infusible Ink because it is in the fibers of your fabric. Cricut has a variety of blanks that you can get to use with the Infusible Ink, and they are all tan or white. I have tried Infusible ink on some other items. Granted, the ink is not as bright, and also you're not going to want to use it on any dark fabrics because you're not going to be able to see it the way that the ink is designed. I recently made this cool tote bag and cosmetic pouches using the Cricut blanks, and I really love them. This craft stash cut file is so funny, and it's available over on my blog for free. Who feels it? Leave me a comment. How big is your craft stash? I think we're amongst friends. We can talk about it. I also love this David Rose inspired bag. Let me know if you watch this show down in the comments. And these shirts I recently made for a friend's bachelorette party. Infusible ink also comes in pens, and I use those to create these hand-drawn coasters with some more Cricut blanks. It was so easy, you don't even need a tutorial. I found this project in Design Space and literally clicked make it. The cool thing about these is you can transfer the ink from the marker to regular printer paper, and it will also cut the circle for the coaster all in one swoop. Then you tape them onto the coaster with the heat resistant tape and press just like you would with any other Infusible ink project. This was my first project with the markers, and I'll for sure be doing more. It was pretty easy. There's a little bit of first timers trying to figure this out, but the pens come in 0.4 as well as 1.0 tips. And so this particular one was made with a thicker marker, which altered the look slightly, but I still love them.
Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to Cricut for partnering with me today so that I could bring you guys all of my tips and tricks and more information on the variety of materials that you can cut with your Cricut. Let me know down below what other questions you have about your machine or cutting in general, crafting. I would love to answer those in a future video, and also be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss that future content. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!